Recording. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to break our mobility session today up and do some components and parts of a flow. I do often before I start kind of full body workouts that we've been doing a lot at home. My roommate and I do it a lot, and everyone on the video today, I have Zeke and Danielle with me, have agreed that that sounds good for them. So we're going to break some of those pieces up. A lot of them you guys have maybe done before with me or on your own. And so we're going to do each one a little bit separately, and then we'll flow it all together as one kind of bring everything together component. So let me move this so you guys can see me for the flow. That angle works. We have Ro in here too. She may or may not get kicked out. We'll see. Oh, and Zeke. Do you have Latoya there at all, Zeke? Oh, thank you. Oh, there she is. Knew she had to be close by. Love it. Okay, here we go. I zoomed out again so I can see both Danielle and Zeke, and hopefully the gallery view shows up for today's mobility. That way, when we're going through the flow, people can see what you guys are doing. If at any point you have questions or things that you don't understand, again, as always, chime in, because people that watch this later might have had those same questions if I didn't cover something well enough. We're gonna start with my favorite is shin boxes. Okay, so we're giving each part of this flow of kind of where I stop or pause or hold for different parts of the flow, its own time and attention first, and then we'll put it all together. So shin boxes, pick a side, any side. With these ones, if you want, while we're hanging out here, pay attention. I always encourage people with these to see how far they've come. Some people have always had to lay back, or it's hard for them to sit up. If you can sit up all the way, or let's say you normally have a bolster under your bum so that it's not as deep, maybe try taking some of that away and sitting upright. If you're someone that can sit up but you always have to hold on, maybe try and turn and sit up without hands. If you're someone that this is like no problem, add in that kind of internal hip rotation, right? So you're kind of pulling up on that heel, right? And then again, if you're someone that this is no problem and you get even higher than I do, then next chance is to say, okay, can I hold this without cramping out through here? Can I let go with my hand and have that foot stay lifted off the ground, right? Or slow lower it back down. So play with that. We're just gonna sit here for another 30 seconds or so on this side, just letting our body kind of relax into it, especially if you've been sitting at a desk, which I think Zeke and Danielle, you're both working from home still, yeah? Yeah. You look like you're at home, but you're both still working, yeah? Yeah. Good. Go ahead and carefully, let's switch sides. I don't care about you doing it as a swivel just yet, so we're going to add that in later, but switch sides. So for this one, like for me, I feel a lot of stretch on the front of this one today, but I did a bike ride the other day, and even though it's using both, for me, a lot of times there's one side that I tend to shift a little more to, and so I think that's probably where I'm feeling that. So on this one, I'm gonna actually squeeze my butt on this side and kind of roll my hip forward. It's another little thing that, again, depending on where you're tight, if you wanna be doing the internal rotation, for this one, I'm using it to kind of squeeze and rotate through the hip. You guys can play around with that. Some people might wanna like practice getting a little bit of a stretch through the front glute. So they might take their leg forward and lean into it if you want. We're gonna add that lean and laying over with what people can handle in the flow, but if you want to do that while you're sitting here and work on that rotation here, because you can always work that external rotation like this too. So this is always options depending on who you are. And again, reminder, this one, that internal rotation, and then maybe if you got that, no problem, you try to hold that foot off the ground once you let go. Something to play with. And again, you can always add some twisting and turning, which we'll be throwing in during our flow at the end. Okay, go ahead and swivel your legs back out. This time we're gonna do, this one's, we can throw this as part of our flow, but I'm gonna use it as a way to stretch while we're already down here, kind of the outside of that hip so that the flow feels easier to do. You're gonna sit crisscross and you're just gonna lean into that position. So I feel the stretch here. Some people might feel it pinching here. I don't care which side's over which, because we're gonna end up doing both. We've done this one once before. We're just putting a lot of stuff together. Sometimes I'll push my legs down and out. Other times I'll fall forward if my back's not bugging me, like this. Sometimes you can lean a bit towards one side and you get a little bit more of a stretch to there. Which is what I do most of the time for you guys, I just move kind of throughout into different spots while I'm holding a stretch. There's always different practices of relaxation and yoga and yin and breathing in and less tension. But I'm just also very big on the fact that we should move and bend and stretch and all of that. So there's nothing wrong with constant bits of movement throughout your stretch and playing around with different positions. Go ahead and switch so that the other side is in front. And you might feel like this is like way easier if you'd picked your other side. You might feel that you don't all of a sudden feel a stretch at all. You might feel like this way your legs are way up, right? Everybody's a little bit different. You can kind of push out with the elbows and fold down that way. You can lean forward, reach, whatever you guys want. You can even do a bit of a turn and push, up to you. Depends on what feels good to you, what you feel as far as tension goes. Some people could like literally put their forehead to the ground. I am definitely not one of those people, but if you're watching this later and you are, go for it. As long as your back feels okay to do that, let it go. If you want to just let your neck hang for a second, this is fine. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and shake it out through here, okay? Next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna open up through our chest and hips a little bit by doing a supine plank or hip bridge kind of combo. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I'm gonna walk through different options of this since we're breaking it down by itself. When we do the flow, you'll end up doing the one that looks like a crab walk because it's part of the flow and the bridge of it. This is just how you can progress your way depending on what you like. So to start with, you can always start on the elbows. This depends on, shoulder integrity, elbow ability to bear weight on it if you've had history of injury, and just how strong and comfortable your neck is. So take those into account. And then you can have your legs, I'll scooch back a little bit, legs straight, heels on the ground. And you're just practicing. This is to open up the chest a little bit to activate the glutes. Just practicing bridging in this supine plank up off the ground, and then you can come back down. So again, my legs and heels are flat and straight. I can put them out wide or narrow, but I'm really trying to kind of push through the ground, push up through the chest, and then just lift. So you'll feel a little bit of fatigue maybe. Maybe you don't do this enough or you're really tight in the backside or the front of the shoulder, so you can't get up very high off the ground. This isn't about being super high. It's just about getting that activation. And then you can go ahead after you've done, like, let's say 3 to 5 of those, try it out. For me, it's always very challenging. I'm very tight through here, so I have to work really hard through my glutes to get up and open. So it's a good one that I know I need to work on more. You can keep those legs, again, flat still and on the heel. And now I'm gonna do it where I come up and through a straight arm. Now this one I feel to stretch a lot more down into the arm by not having myself kind of down on the elbow and all gummed up here. It allows me to have a bit of an assistance to open up a little more than when I was down on the elbows. It's not a bad thing to practice the elbows. That's a great one to like draw out where you're maybe weak, but this can be a really good one for stretching and engaging as well. So I'd say go through 3 to 5 of those, opening up and through the chest. And then lastly, we're gonna do it where we bridge through. It's gonna look like a crab walk. And you can play around with what angle you have your hands, right? There's gonna be a spot that's a lot more productive for weight bearing. There's also gonna be spots that feel like you're getting a good little stretch while you're using this as mobility, okay? But kind of bridging up and through. And for this one, goal is to not let the heel come off the ground, walk it out as you need to, and then really bridge up. I like to let my head fall back in this one because it gives me that kind of a little bit of difference. And then I kind of roll back in and then I push back up. This is going to be more similar to what we do in the flow. And I do like the one that's the pull through where I'm pushing back and coming forward. It gets things active. Up to you. So do a few of those. Go ahead and rest for a second. Give your wrists a rest. You can hold, you can do active positions, whatever. We are going to do it as a flow. Now we're going to practice the part that I'm going to add in to the end of the flow. That involves being in that position and then reaching up with one arm. So you'll be in that bridged position, and then you're gonna reach up and over with one arm. So a lot of times you'll find, if you're someone that's really tight through the shoulders, that's your limiting factor. When we take one shoulder out of it and bridge up, we can actually get higher through the hips. Now, what I don't want is for you to turn through or pick up the heel. I want you to stay just as braced and level through the two legs, and you're getting that twist through that upper body and opening. And then let's go ahead and switch sides. And you're gonna bridge up and over. And you'll notice you'll have one side that's probably better at it than the other. If you wanna just be holding a side here or there, that's fine right now. But let's go ahead and get a couple reps in at least on each side, depending on who you are. If you are someone that this is too much on a shoulder or the hip extension is there, you can always just practice being up like this and then back down. Where you're up, you're not super high bridged, you're just trying to get that rolled back position in the arms, depending on how much you need to scale in, okay? Go ahead and come back to the main center of everything. The last thing we're gonna do real quick, just to stretch everything out in the upper back and shoulders, because we're gonna throw it into our full flow, is it just a, I think this one's child's pose, where you're just down and you're reaching forward, okay? So for this one, super simple, but then I want you to walk towards one side and then really reach with that arm. I just wanna get a little bit more through the lat right now while you can, because when we do the flow, our legs are gonna be crisscrossed. We might not get as much mobility from our low back limiting us, so you might not get to sink into the lat as hard as I want. So I just wanna get a little time and attention on these spots specifically before we put them into the flow. Go ahead and walk back to the other side now. And then again, reach with this arm, reach and stretch through. And then you can think about sinking towards the ground with your chest. Okay, perfect. All right, so that just got a little bit of time and attention on each one, because when we do the flow, we will have a bit of a one that's designed at the lat. But again, if your low back is limiting or your hips are limiting so you can't fall into the stretches deeply, you might not hit as much lat as you want. So I want to make sure we got at least a little bit of just to the lat. So now we're going to do our full flow. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate in general what it's going to look like. And then we're going to go through 5 times together on each side. If when you're flowing on your own, you're spending more time in each spot and you get through 3 times, or you don't go with me, you just use the time that I'm allowing for one side to do whatever part of the flow you want, go for it. That's totally fine. If you feel like one part of the movement is more necessary for you, or if you need to hold one spot to really get a stretch, go for it. Modify whatever you want. But I'm going to demonstrate one full flow that I tend to go through a lot. Okay, if you have a bolster for your shin box, if you're someone who needs to have that thing propped up and underneath, this should still be fine. You'll just be hip bridging over that bolster, so it shouldn't be a problem. I'm gonna move where I'm not doing a flow over a dog. Okay, you guys can still see me. So I start in a shin box base position, okay, and then what I do is I then do a sweep into that kind of lat, and I go back and forth for one. I get a little bit of a rotation. I come up into that rotation. I go back into that rotation. When I've gone back, I've just taken that hand and put it back here, so then I can bridge. So I'm getting that hip swivel that we practice, and then come up into that position and down, and then back here, and then I'll come up. I'm gonna add this one in as we discussed, get a little bit of the top of that, kind of stretch the adductor, and then I come back down. As I come back down, I lean through. Again, if you need to kind of like reach throughout your sweep, and then I come up with a twist, and I start again, and a twist, and then a hand goes back, okay? So that's a full flow of hitting a little bit of everything. Now that I just explained it, I'll do one more demonstration real time of what I do, and then we're gonna go through 4 times together, okay? So if you wanna go through this one as our 5th time right now, go for it. If you wanna watch, because it still doesn't make sense, you wanna see it all together, so you can do it on your own, that's fine. So starting here, full sweep, stretch, stretch, reach, down, up into the swivel, back, out, and then back down, same side. Okay, so now starting number 1 of 4 more that we're doing, I do my stretch, my rotation, up and reach, back down, up into that swivel, and going through here. Nice, Danielle. And then I come back down. I'll do a little slower on this one, so I lean down into that stretch, lean over, I twist, I come up into that reach, come back down immediately into a swivel, up onto the knees. Nice, Zeke. There's your swivel. I like it. And then coming back down. Yep. So I'm getting lots of activity. Good. I'll wait till you two, since I'm with you, come back down because you're both in a close to the same spot. We're going to sweep again. Okay, so reaching out, reaching out. If you want to hold one spot instead of sweep, that's fine. And then open twist, twist back the other way. Maybe I squeeze this butt a little, come up onto that single hand. Each time it should feel like it's getting easier for you to do and that you're getting warmer. Then I come back down right into the swivel and up onto the legs. Maybe you're someone that wants to go even more out to the side. I'm not as good at that one, right? You want to go forward a little into the hip flexor, that's fine. And I come back down. Okay, 2 more. I think maybe actually only 1 more. 1 more on this side. See if I can count right. You throw in an extra one. And I rotate, and then I twist back, and then I bridge up, back down into my swivel. Woo! Start feeling my stabilizers working when I'm coming up into my hips, when I'm swiveling around. I'm getting sweaty, though I do have long sleeve and long pants on. And roll down. Let's do 1 more. All right, so hang out into that stretch, into that rotation, into that kind of sweep around, depending on what you feel. Rotate up into that last bridge on this side. I already feel less pull into that bicep. And then this one, I'm gonna actually give myself a little extra lean. And then come back down. Now while I'm here, I practice that swivel to the other side. And then a lot of times I sit and breathe for a couple reps because I start getting my heart rate going by doing that flow. So I get comfortable in this spot, I let myself relax for a second. I instantly feel way tighter than I did on the other side because I just loosened it a bunch. So kind of get that spot. And then we're gonna do 5 together on this side. Since we already demoed the flow on the other one a bunch of times, I'm just gonna work through it with you guys at speed, okay? So we're gonna do 5 of these, reaching out. You're starting the other direction and sweeping. Maybe you take a little more time on this one because it's your first one on this side. And then I turn, and then I turn the opposing way. Squeeze that butt a little if I want, put that hip behind. And then I swivel up into that bridge. You might have to find, like I automatically wanted to bring my toes up, so maybe my quads on this side are tighter. So I move my legs out a little, that's fine. And then I come back down right into that swivel. Woo, mobility's not as good on this one. And I come up into that. Nice work, Danielle. I know you're also dealing with the stability of that foot too. So nice job on that with coming up on these. Rose really not entertained by us right now. She's mad that I'm not playing with her. Coming back down, and again, starting at the front, opposite side, going through that sweep, walking around into that stretch. Up into a rotation. Again, make sure you're being nice to your low back. If this bugs you, don't over torque it. And then rotating back. And then for me, I remember I had to move my feet a little because of mobility on this side so that I could bridge up. I'm getting a little extra squeeze on my butt so that I really get those quads loosened up, and then I come up into that swivel. Maybe you even add in a little hammy stretch, right? Have fun with it, whatever you feel like you need on one side compared to the other. I really like mobility that involves moving and flowing. I know I give us a lot of individual pieces, But when I actually do my warm-ups, I throw stuff together. I'm like, let's be efficient. Let's move through it. I can't sit still kind of moves. So that's what today's about. Okay, and then swiveling up onto the hips. I didn't have to move my feet that time. Woohoo! Little victories. My quads are loosening up. And I come back down. And I'm up. Back to my top of that shin box. And squeezing through. Getting a little adductor. I can even push out a little for those that don't remember the top of that stretch. And back down. 2 more, guys. 2 more. If you're fitting in like a bunch of these because you're just flying through, no problem. If you're going slower and really stretching and doing it right for you, no problem. Whatever you need right now. And then bridge up. And back down. All right, Latoya making an appearance. All right, last one, guys, starting with that sweep. Walk around. So you notice, like for me, I don't get as much to the lat on these because I'm so tight, I can't sink way down. That's why I threw in that child's pose earlier with that kind of lateral shift. So again, if you feel like there's any part of you that didn't get as much out of the flow, it just got warm, go back and do some of them individually by themselves so you can give them all the time and attention that it needs. Oh, this time I'm gonna throw in on this side a little hammy again. That's what I'm feeling on this leg. Whatever it is about my pelvis, right? We all have different compensation factors that we might feel. You could even roll it, what it looks like. I'll show you here. You can even roll it a little bit and sink back so you get a little bit of the outside stretch here. You can keep it straight and bend the knee. You can do whatever, but sometimes I roll. You can flow in through all of this stuff. All right. So that completes the numbered sets we're doing together. You guys can totally keep playing through these. I just like flows. I like things that could hit it where I could be like, I do 5 on each side and there's my mobility for the day. I'm done. I moved through it. I'm warm and ready for my workout, whatever. Sometimes I just find like, oh, I just like this one piece. Other times I'm like, I need my stabilizers firing because we're doing single leg deads and whatever. So if I do something that's a mobility flow, I know that I'm having to coordinate stretching with stability, which is mobility, right? And so sometimes I'll do those. If we had a Turkish get up day or something, or a running day where I'm going to be pounding and impacting stuff, like I better make sure that every little stabilizer and thing's firing so I don't roll an ankle or aggravate my neck because I'm just locked down. I'll do stuff that's more of a flow. Another flow that we've done before is one that's similar, where we walk out into the plank, then we walk back from the plank into a squat, and then we do that bootstrapper stretch, and then roll up from a Jefferson curl. That's another really good flow, especially for squatting and hip specific and low back. So I'll show you that one just once as a reminder of if you like flows better than static stretches, right? So that's the one where we start kind of with our squat width instead of a normal like plank width, okay? So if you guys want to do that just as a reminder, refresher course, since it's kind of a flow day, right? We'll go down, kind of like rolling through the low back, getting a little hammy stretch, right? We walk out into the plank for the first one, right? And then from there, I bend the knees like I'm walking backwards into a perfect bear crawl, and then I sit right up into my squat. I can then grab my big toes and then do that bit of a bootstrapper, right? And then sometimes I'll then roll up and stretch up overhead. And then I roll back down to the bootstrapper, come back down to my squat, and then walk back in to that plank. So my core is getting nice and heated up. And then I'm really scooping in to the hip. I get a little bit of hammy, a little low back, right? I roll up and stretch. Roll back down to that bootstrapper, drop into the squat, core is braced, walk out into the plank. I might even add a little hip extension here, and I go back up to the plank, walk back to the squat, right? So that's another flow as a reminder. If you like the flow way of doing some mobility, those are kind of the two mobilizing flows that I do personally. It's not right, it's not wrong, just what I do. It's something I like. That's a way to like kind of quickly sync a bunch of moves together, because we don't always take the time to do mobility, but then we're sitting there like, stretching my arm for 2 minutes, okay, switch sides. Like, we could instead flow everything together in a more functional way. You might like those. Cool. All right, I'm gonna take any questions or comments from Danielle and Zeke in case anyone watching the recording later had the same questions. If you don't have any, no problem. I'll just end the recording. Up to you guys.
That was good.
I don't think I have any questions.
Yeah, you're
That was
good? A little bit sweaty after that, or is it just me?
No, I definitely little hot there.
Yeah, perfect. I was hoping, I was like, could just be me, but I always get really warm doing these because they're a great way to kind of heat up all the muscles without like going straight into your workout. So that's good. How'd your foot feel through doing some of those? Did you feel like it got a little bit of stretch through that too with any of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Starting right when we started, just holding that position before we started the whole flow was a little rough, but then it got easier as it went.
Right, like when your body all of a sudden realizes you have to do it as a movement instead of as a static spot, it like figures itself out a little bit. It like heats some muscles up or gets them engaged. How about you, Danielle?
My foot didn't like some of those. The bridge one was quite painful, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so playing around maybe with putting your feet further out, or maybe you end up doing it as, you know, instead of the hip bridge here, maybe you end up doing it just like one of those, right? Like you can totally do that stuff for yours, and then retest maybe at the end of doing them like, oh, after I've done this way, can I throw one in once it's loosened up a little? It'll be a fun way to just build your own flow out of it, right? Cool.
And like I found out like the first time I did it, I had my hands completely like this, and it was really, really hard. And so I kind of just opened them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that definitely helped me out.
Perfect. Yeah, playing around with that hand position, like
Yeah, it was huge.
right position, right? You can always go and have a goal to get better at one position, but like if it's the angle that works best for your shoulders to even start doing the work, like it's worth playing around with the angle of that. And then the same for me, like I said, I noticed on one side when I was doing this part, I went to go up on it my first one, and my feet were like this because my quads were so tight on that side, I like couldn't bridge. So I was like, okay, I have to walk it out a little or turn my knees out so it's more like a nice braced squat because of my ankles not having loosened up yet or something. Like it's definitely worth, like you said, playing around with whatever your tripod is, right? Whatever you're sitting on. That's a great point, because I mention it, I always like kind of squeak by things, but then I never ask if it helps. So that's wonderful. Cool. Any other comments or things to offer for the video if people are watching after? Perfect. Cool. Okay, I'm going to end this recording real quick.